right, let's get into our first big story. The Court of Appeal in Abuja has set aside the order of Justice Okonabang recognizing Jimo Ibrahim as the candidate of the People's Democratic Party for the Ondo governorship election holding this Saturday.
And the court said Justice Abang erred in law by upholding Jimo Ibrahim as the PDP candidate for the election without listening to Itayo Jegede, who was already on INEC's list for the poll.
After months of legal tussle, the long wait on who flies the People's Democratic Party's ticket in Saturday's Ondo State election has been put to rest. Shouts of victory and laughter filled the air after the appeal court's verdict. While delivering the ruling, Justice Ibrahim Saulawa said natural justice demands that all parties in the case be heard before judgment is passed. He noted that Jegede was not a party in the suit when Justice Abang ordered that Ibrahim be recognized as the PDP candidate. Justice Saulawa stressed that the 1999 Constitution spells out the process that must be followed in conducting a primary election, adding that he was convinced that that process was not followed. He added that the primary election that produced Jimo Ibrahim in Ibadan, the Oyo State capital, was unlawful and so cannot stand the test of time. In effort, the appellate court described the entire proceeding of October the 14th by Justice Abang as null and void. The court subsequently upheld Jegede's appeal while setting aside the judgment of the lower court. Conspicuously absent in court was the Alimodu Sheriff camp. In the absence of Jimo Ibrahim and his supporters, Itayo Jegede and his counsel reacted to the judgment.
I give glory to God Almighty, and I reiterate again my confidence in the judiciary. And again, I thank the people of Ondo State for their steadfastness and dedication, and also for their belief in me. Now, we're not in this for self-seeking. We're in this to serve our people. And by the grace of God, I said before now, that God willing, I will contest this election. God willing, I will win the election. Amen. I look forward to February next year. Again, I look forward to the elections that will take place in November. And I assure our people that will dedicate the service that we have to development of the state.
And foremost, I want to say that this is a victory for justice, victory for the rule of law, a victory to everything that is professional in terms of our legal practice. But the truth of it is that we just had no other alternative than to keep trudging on in the face of all untold hardships, all untold efforts being put in place to ensure that the justice of these matters was frustrated. But happily enough, as I did prophesy, God has made it possible for us to say today justice has truly been done.
The course is now clear for Jegede to fly PDP's flag in Saturday's election.
Okay. All right, there was a mild jubilation in Akure shortly after the appeal court judgment that declared Itayo Jegede as the governorship candidate of the PDP. Let's take a look at this.
Members of the party danced around major streets of Akure. Party faithful and supporters of Jegede are optimistic that his victory at the court would increase his chances of winning the election come Saturday.
Oh God, we thank God Almighty. To our Lord, our God be the glory, honor, adoration. This is what we have been praying for. We women, we have been praying, fasting every day for this judgment, because we were cheated by replacing Jimo Ibrahim names with the Itayo Jegede, but we thank God Almighty.
For me, and for everybody in Ondo State, it is a manifestation of the goodwill of Ondo State people. It is a triumph of light over darkness. It is triumph of evil. A triumph of good.
Triumph of light over darkness.
Those are adjectives that are used very commonly in politics in Nigeria. Good over evil, light over darkness. You know, God over Satan, however way, as the case
and all
may
the
be.
rest of them.
And
But
the
when
rest of
it's
it.
not going their way, what happens?
All right, let's get on a break now, and we'll come back. We have our guest in the studio already, but let's go on this break. Still with us on TVC Breakfast.
All right, you're welcome back. Yes, the show begins in earnest. It's TVC Breakfast. Now we're being joined by a lawyer, Liboros Oshoma, and we are expecting also Adetokunbo Pierce, who will be joining us from our Abuja studio. Good morning. Thanks for joining us
My pleasure,
on the show this morning. And yes, there's still a number of people to join us on the show this morning.
We'll be crossing over to Akure, certainly. The chairman of Inter-Party Advisory Council, Honorable Mohammed Lawal Nalado, will be joining us from Abuja, and we'll be crossing to our correspondent in Akure,
Ayo Zumbako. He's on ground there.
We'll get a perspective of how things are just 2 days before the
Ayo is already there. Maybe he wants to set the stage for us on exactly what's...
let's start from the studio.
Let's start from the studio. That'll be fine. Liboros, so now the Supreme Court has said Abang aired.
The Court of Appeal.
The Court of Appeal actually said that Abang aired in not allowing Jagade have a fair hearing in coming up with the judgment that actually removed him, and replacing him with Jimoh Ibrahim.
Yeah, the last time I was here, I did say that there was no way you can, for a matter such as this, where the candidate who was not a party in the matter, his interest was being determined, that it would be against the principles of natural justice and fair hearing, to shut him out, that the court usually frowns at such practice. And then also, remember also I referred you to the Anambra case. During Peter Obi as governor then. And that, so I wasn't surprised when the Court of Appeal lambasted Justice Abang, that it's short of saying that it's judicial rascality. And then also, I also said that day that it would be appropriate to allow, all parties ventilate their grievance in court and let the court determine. And then also with the move that the Modu Sheriff's factions were making First, they accused the first panel of being compromised, and the panel withdrew from the matter, and the judge, the presiding judge of the Court of Appeal, immediately constituted another panel, knowing fully where the urgency of the matter, against the backdrop that elections are just around the corner. And then the next approach was, very frivolous. I've never seen, in all my years of practice, that the speed at which the panel was constituted, and that so the panel should not even hear the matter. And you now begin to ask yourself, where lies fair hearing in all of this? And they now immediately appealed to when the panel insisted that it was going to hear the matter, and even granted leave to Jegede to appeal that, Justice Okonabang's judgment. They went to Court of Appeal, filed about 10 applications at the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court said no. Court of Appeal, go ahead with the matter. And then also, one funny thing that happened also at the Supreme Court was that they listed the 3 judges in the matter as respondents, in the matter at the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court was very angry. Even the Supreme Court awarded costs against the counsel, not the litigant now.
That he must pay from his own pocket.
Yes, that he must pay from his pocket. That for you, a lawyer, to do this, knowing fully well that the justices of the Supreme Court had no option in the matter. Once a matter is assigned to you, the way it is, you cannot, because a litigant says it was too quick. And so that's, they've never seen that kind of practice. And so I remember also last time I did say that these are opportunities for MBA to begin to investigate lawyers, and then also let NJC investigate judges also. When this is not the first time. Do you remember the Abia case also between Uche Oga and the current of Ikpeazu, and the step that Justice Okonabang took in that matter, and the way the Supreme Court, the Court of Appeal came down heavily on him. And now also, for me...
And Abang seems to be a recurring decimal in all of these cases. Does it call for a question mark? But we will, come to that.
All right, let's get to Akure now. Ayo Zubaku, our correspondent, is standing by there. Ayo, good morning. It's good to have you join us right now on TVC Breakfast. Now, it's 2 days before the election. Give us a mood of what's going on. Also, considering the latest ruling of the court having Jegede now against Jimo Ibrahim, ordering INEC to recognize Jegede. Give us the move. What's going on there right now?
All right. That particular verdict of the Court of Appeal yesterday actually altered the political calculation in Ondo State. A lot of people, over 200,000 voters in Akure North and South, they have, in terms of numerical strength, I think they're about the largest. And if you know, Itayo Jegede is from Akure, and this will be the first time somebody from Akure will be, vying for the governorship to occupy the Alagbaka government house. So as expected yesterday, in the last 3 weeks, there's been like a kind of tension around Akure, and a lot of people have been very, very quiet. You won't even know that election is about to take place. But yesterday, you will have a feel that something actually is happening. So immediately, the Court of Appeal's verdicts just came in, I think around 3 p.m. yesterday, 3 p.m. yesterday. The whole town went into a kind of frenzy. And I can tell you that that happened all night, because don't forget, they've lost a kind of, this kind of time. They don't have time to actually campaign. 3 weeks their campaign was disrupted, and they just have less than 24 hours to actually campaign. But talking about the whole election, the impact of the election, I have the chairperson of the Transition Monitoring Group, a very, very strategic group that monitors all the elections in Nigeria, Dr. Mrs. Abiola Akiode.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's nice being here today.
All right, from what you've seen so far, level of preparations from political parties in terms of the promises they've made to the people in terms of the campaign, how would you access the Ondo exercise?
It's good it's coming out this way because as at some few days ago, the politics has been very heated up, and with the Court of Appeal decision yesterday, I think it's better because people now know what the Saturday will look like. Well, looking at the whole scenario in Ondo State, I think it calls for us to further strengthen our electoral system and also to work more with the political parties. The civil society organizations, they are already here. The Transition Monitoring Group, it's deploying over 200 election monitors across the 3 senatorial districts, and I'm also aware that the situation room is here. There are a whole lot of civil society organizations that are ready to ensure that we monitor the election so that there can be electoral justice, there can be electoral accountability. I assume that the political parties also are ready. Even those who were saying that they should postpone the Saturday election must be ready, because it looks like the way we are going to go ahead with the Saturday election. By and large, they have deployed a lot of security agencies, over 26,000.
I wanted to tell you that, ask you that oftentimes when we have elections in Nigeria, especially those ones we've been having in other states, a lot of people will say that what happened at the end of the day when they declared the results is not always in tandem with the wishes and aspirations of the people.
Well, and I think that's why we all have to be on guard to ensure that the election actually speaks to the aspiration of the Ondo State people. Well, a lot of people can come into play, like what we saw in Edo State, to the extent that you cannot even rely on what the people can use their vote to say, which is really a serious problem. In Edo State, for example, there were a lot of vote buying, vote selling. So we do hope that Ondo State will not be like that, because the reason why this has continued is because of the impunity that follows it. About 2 days ago, the INEC representative here had said that in Kano State about 1,000 people were actually jailed for 1 year for inducement around elections. So we do hope that, yes, we do hope that this would also, if this happens here, they will not just let it go like in Edo State. They will be prosecuted, so that we don't keep having that kind of occurrence in the state. But by and large, I think what is important for us is not only about what happens during election, the pre-election arrangement by INEC. We do, if you compare what happened in Edo with all the other ones that we have been seeing in Kogi and other places, Edo was quite better in terms of INEC preparedness, logistic, materials were there, people were there on time. They had a mid-shift camp where they kept people to be closer to senatorial districts. So we do hope that INEC has that kind of plan. In terms of voter education, I think a lot has been done this time more than ever before, and probably that's also...
I really have to go now. I want to thank you, Dr. Mrs. Abiola Akiode, and she's the chairperson of the Transition Monitoring Group. And I can tell you that, yes, there are 28 candidates for Saturday's election, but for free, I can tell you that 3 of those candidates are frontliners. It's between the Alliance for Democracy, the People's Democratic Party, and the All Progressives Congress. And the way it is now, you know, there's going to be a balance of strengths. What I mean by with the verdict yesterday, Eitayo Jegede is very, very strong in the Central Senatorial District, that is Ondo Central. And I can tell you that Olushola Oke of the Alliance for Democracy is very strong in the Southern Senatorial District. And the last but not the least, Oluwarotimi Akeredolu of the All Progressive Congress is strong in the Northern Senatorial District. And so if a winner is going to emerge, we just have 1.2 million voters, registered voters with PVC in Ondo State that will make the difference. So if anybody is going to emerge, I bet you with the calculations on ground, with what happened in 2012, the winner might now have more than 200,000 votes. It's going to be a keenly contested election. Mike.
Of course, we're going to be asking you how strong the call is for a postponement of this election so that Jegede, who has lost some time, could regain the time that he's lost. We'll take a short break, and when we return, of course, we'll come back to our guests in the studio and, of course, Ayo there in Akure.
All right, if you're just joining us, you're watching TVC Breakfast. And right now, certainly, we are going out on TVC,
Yes.
TVC Entertainment. And viewers there can continue with the program on TVC Nigeria on Concert Channel 190, DSTV Channel 418.
And of course, GoTV 45 and ACTV 510. Now, our guest is in the studio. We're looking at the Ondo elections, the build-up, and of course, with the latest development. Now, Jagade has his way. He will be part of the election come November 26. Libora Soshoma is right here in the studio. And of course, Ayo Zumbaku is still very much there on the ground in Akure. Ayo, my question is, how strong is the call, if you can hear me, how strong is the call for a postponement of the election now that, you know, Eitayo Jagade is PDP candidate for the election? Right.
All right. We seem to have
obviously,
but we'll have him back. We'll have Ayo back to discuss this. Maybe let's.
Liboros, what do you think about this? I mean, people are already saying Eitayo Jagade is playing the Oliver Twist here. Now you have your way, and you're asking for a postponement of the election. Would it be fair?
That's basically not INEC's problem.
Okay.
Because
as
far as INEC is concerned, PDP had a candidate. The court ordered INEC to include or to substitute a name. And so for all intent and purpose, PDP had a candidate. And now that, you know, a candidate who had also been battling, who felt shortchanged, has been included. So for you now to if he knew, I expected also that while the matter was going on, while he was fighting his legal battle, he also had to, you know, be doing his groundwork, because interviews he had granted pre the judgment, you know, he kept insisting that, you know,
he would be part of the
election. And so calling for a postponement, for me, you know, would be injustice to other candidates, because he's not the only candidate. If you remember also, this is not the first time. It had happened during in 2007 or so, 2007 presidential election, when Atiku, who was the candidate of the ACN then, you know, there was an indictment, a supposed indictment by an administrative panel that disqualified him, and the matter dragged on from the High Court all the way to the Supreme Court. And just a few days to the election, the Supreme Court insisted that his name must be included in the ballot. And, you know, INEC didn't postpone election at that time because they said they had to hurriedly reprint ballot papers and the rest. And so if that's, you know, for the entire federation at that time, INEC didn't postpone election, I don't think INEC also should postpone election now. Because if it was the fact that PDP didn't have a candidate at that time, or that there was no candidate for PDP, or that PDP was not included in the ballots
as a party,
then, you know, like what happened in Atiku's case, you know, the call would have been justified. But now PDP had a candidate for all intent and purpose, and so it will not be appropriate to say that you should give him you know, an extension.
All right. Now that's in the eyes of the law. That's the ideal standards. We know that if you tilt or flip the coin to the politics of all of this, you know that the way things are right now, well, you said he would have been doing his underground work, but on the other hand, his not being there all this while has given advantage to the other political parties, maybe. But it is not only PDP that is calling for the postponement.
We also have 17 other parties,
other political parties that are
fringe.
What exactly? now, what implications will all that have going ahead? We remember also in Edo State, just 2 days before the election was postponed.
In Edo State, 2 days before the election was postponed on grounds of insecurity. Even though some parties actually called for it, for reasons best known to security personnel, they said that the election should be postponed. That's, you know, because according to them, because of the celebration and the fact that there were security threats, they couldn't actually police the state for the election. A lot of us criticized that decision. And so I won't sit down here to now say that because elections were postponed in Edo State, and unjustifiably postponed in Edo State, and so also it should be postponed in Ondo State, because these candidates, mind you, it is not what happens 2 weeks to election that actually would make you win election, even though they say, 24 hours in politics is a lot.
It is a long time.
For realignment. And so if 24 hours is a lot of time for realignment, then you still have at least a window, because you probably would have been doing your homework. And mind you, we're talking about the candidate of the ruling party in the state. And so the ruling party also should have, some projects to showcase. They would ride on the performance. He would want to ride on the performance of the existing governor, if there are any. And also, Olushola Oke, who is the candidate of the AD, after the primaries in APC that, he lost. He decamped to AD. And it happened also, Mimiko, in 2012 now, when Mimiko decamped from PDP 6 months to the election, went to Labour Party and still won the election. Yeah. And so Olushola Oke had decamped to AD now 2 months before the election, and you can see that the crowd that he is pulling. Exactly. Also, for a candidate of the PDP who had been on ground, who had been mobilizing also, just that there was a period of interregnum, a hitch, between that when he won the primaries and yesterday. So I really don't see now, that it might be a challenge, but I don't think that it would be a big challenge for somebody who is visibly on ground.
True. Now, with this 3-horse race, strong contenders, all of them.
Yes.
Do you see a clear winner emerging in this election, or are we going to have another issue arising from?
I see a clear winner emerging in the election, but it's going to be very tight. It's going to be a tight race, because all the contenders are equally strengthened. And so, but it now depends on who is able to mobilize more. Is able to mobilize more people to come out and exercise their votes on that day. And also, I would crave the indulgence of the security personnel and INEC to ensure that the will of the people is allowed to prevail. And once that happens, we're going to have a clear winner. But because also there's fear that it would be difficult, for considering the fact that for a winner to emerge, since they are almost regional, they all have regional strength.
Yes.
And for a winner to emerge, you must have at least 25% of the vote in 2/3 of the local government. You must have a spread. And some people also have argued that that might not be. But I disagree, because for me, for the candidates that have been, you see them crisscrossing, the length and breadth of the state. 25% of the votes in local government is not, we have not seen situations where it is impossible for a winner to have 25% spread in state election.
In this case, all 18 local governments.
Yeah, it's usually very easy. That's why if it were 50% of the votes, that's where you say it's a tall order. But 25%, it's in 18 local government is achievable by any of the candidates, considering the fact that these are candidates, they are not first timer. Even though Itai Ojegede is a first timer, Rotimi Akeredolu is not a first timer. Even the last election in 2012 that he contested, at that time people viewed him as an Ibadan man, but now he's more on ground. Olushola Oke, even the last time also, was a strong contender if not that Mimiko was a sitting governor, he probably would have won that election. And now you have a sitting governor, Mimiko, backing a candidate also. So they are of equal strength. I really don't see...
Okay, we're still expecting to get signals from Akure to have Ayo back on. But this is the first time we're going to have a perfect balance of the three senatorial districts or zones in the state, where each of the three strong contenders are coming from the three different senatorial zones. But what issues will really drive the voting patterns, really, if we have to get into that right now?
Yeah, what usually drive voting patterns in Nigeria, first and foremost, are cultural sentiment, religious sentiments, and then the fact that, okay, where is the candidate from? You know, the other issues, how well he would perform are secondary. You know, the first thing we look at, oh, this man, like you listen to Ayo said, this is the first time a candidate from Akure is contesting an election. And so these politicians know this, and so these are issues,
these sentiments are
important that, okay, if the two other senatorial zones had produced governors at one point or the other, that it will be equitable to allow, you know, the third senatorial zone to produce a governor. And then before then you see them, all the realignment and even portfolios are already assigned. And then some persons also, who also might come from those other senatorial zones, but believing that if these senatorial zones, if the central produces the governor, and then I might as well be a speaker in the House of Assembly, or I might as well, you know, get a portfolio in the House of Assembly, rather than when a candidate from his own zone becomes a governor, he would be shortchanged. And so you see all of this also playing out.
All right, let's take a very quick break. We'll return with more on TVC Breakfast. Stay with us. Back, and it's TVC Breakfast. Our correspondent Ayo Zumako is in Akure, and he's giving us a picture of what things look like. Well, the morning after, you know, the candidate of the PDP, Eitayo Jegede, took over from Jimoh Ibrahim. Ayo, confirm for us that you can hear us. I was trying to find out from you earlier how strong, you know, the call for a postponement of this election is on the part of not only the players in this respect, but people in Akure themselves, or in Ondo State generally. You still cannot hear us, unfortunately. All right. We actually have another guest.
Yeah, we have a guest in our Abuja studio, a lawyer, Anthony Tese. Anthony, can you hear us now? Good morning. It's good to have you on. Okay. I think we'll also put that together as we get along. Now, let's come back to you, Libros, in the studio. 2 days before the election. Now, there is a call. The police commissioner, when she was being interviewed, said that there about the deployment of about 25,000 police officers to the state and all of that. Now, there's always this concern. Elections have been conducted over and over and over again, but each time it looks like there's preparation for war and so on. Yeah. When can we really get over that, so people can really go into election like a festival, like it's done in the US or somewhere?
Unfortunately, you know, we're very far from it. Very, very far from it. If you remember, in the 1999 election in Nigeria, we excused the, you know, inadequacies because we felt, okay, the military conducted election, and so 2003 was worse off. 2007, it was almost as if there was no election. And 2011, we managed to pick up when Jega came. And the first time we would say that there was a semblance of, you know, a sane election was 2015 with innovation. You know, the card reader came. And places where usually you hear landslide and moonslide and all kinds of slide, you know, the numbers started dropping because of the technology that was introduced to verify. And we had expected that by now, that INEC as a body would have been constituted and allow that technology, you know, to be taken a notch further. But nobody's discussing INEC now until we have election. And you also, because of the antics and the behavior of our politicians, one would have expected that you have a strong institution like INEC that will be able to checkmate all of these behaviors by the politicians. But that's not so. As I speak to you now, about 28 states are without resident electoral commissioners. And as I speak to you now, INEC board is still incomplete.
And there are calls already that the regs should actually be scrapped.
When that, if you need to amend the constitution to get to that. And then also, you have executive secretaries conducting elections, and we saw all of the problems that we've had with the elections in the past. talking about inconclusive elections. And so what we should be focusing on now is how do we ensure that you have an INEC that would be able to, if immediate elections are concluded, they should be able to sit down, review, the election, and work on lapses and how to take it a notch further and improve on modalities. But when that does not happen, that's why you will always, lock down a state, militarize the state, because elections are going to happen, because politicians know themselves.
Yes,
they
indeed.
will,
Okay, Liboros, let's bring in Anthony Tese, who is joining us from our Abuja studio. He's a lawyer, and let's look at the legal angle or legal implications of this particular, the crux of the matter really in this case. What do you think it would be? Section 36 of the 1999 Constitution, of course, does say something about fair hearing. But in your reading of this legal tussle from beginning to this point, what would you say was the crux of the matter?
The matter involves the candidacy of the People's Democratic Party in respect of the Ondo gubernatorial elections. Now, one of the parties which did its primaries in Ibadan was inserted by INEC through the lower court. Now, yesterday, the Court of Appeal gave a ruling that the candidate that did the primaries in Akure is the real candidate, and I think that is the correct position, because you cannot go and do primaries in Ibadan and seek to come and rule in Akure. So I think the Court of Appeal was right in giving that ruling.
All right, Anthony.
But then another issue crops up.
Go ahead.
Augustine, please.
Augustine, yeah. So Augustine, sorry, go on. You were going to give us an information there.
Yes, please. Yes. The crux of the matter now is that the man who has been reinstated by the Court of Appeal has wasted a lot of time trying to get himself back on track. Now, elections are about 72 hours from today. How is he going to get back his campaign on track? I think it's imperative that the INEC should be able to postpone this election to give him at least 2 weeks to be able to campaign and put his act in order. If they don't do that, it means they have been able to shortchange him. So I pray that the good reason will prevail.
All right, Augustine.
The INEC will postpone the election to enable him out.
Yes, Augustine, let me ask you this. You're calling for, you are towing the line of postponement, which is a call by some people, even in Ondo State. Some political parties also lent a voice to that. But he is just one candidate out of several other candidates for this governorship election. Would it be fair to the others when he's just one and the other political parties, the other strong contenders are not saying there should be a postponement? Would that be a fair deal when it comes to all the candidates going into this election?
Yes, I heard that about 19 political parties, I'm sure they also have candidates, have asked that INEC should postpone this election. That is even before this verdict was given. What is good for the goose is good for the gander. I recall that in Edo election, the INEC postponed it because of security reasons. This one too should toe the same line. Because the party in question just got themselves on track, and you can never know. The other party, Jimo Ibrahim, is saying that they are going to the Supreme Court. Assuming that they go to the Supreme Court tomorrow, and then another thing happens, it means that that party has been shortchanged. good reason is that this election should be postponed for at least 2 weeks so that the legal angle will be settled once and for all.
Okay, Augustine Tese, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your thoughts with us on TVC Breakfast. Liberals, you have a legal...
Yes, I disagree with that position because I would take our mind back to what happened in Rivers State between Amici and Omeha. After the primaries, PDP substituted Amici and replaced him with Omeha. Amici went to court. Elections were conducted. Omeha was actually sworn in. But the Supreme Court held that the victory at the polls belonged to the party and not the candidate. And that so since Omeha was not the rightful candidate at that time, and so he could not inherit that victory. And so that was how Amici became a governor without contesting election. And so if you juxtapose that Supreme Court position with what is happening, and like I said, the party, political party, PDP, had always had a candidate. You know, so the call for postponement is not, is legally speaking, is not justifiable.
In spite of the fact that this particular candidate, in the case of Amici, was not even part of the electoral process in the first place.
But this one, you had 2 candidates and 2 primaries, one in Akure, one in Ibadan. Both had been campaigning. And the party also had factions. You have Modu Sheriff, you have McAfee faction. And so both parties had been laying claim to the fact that, you know, the soul of PDP belongs to them. And I also presume that both parties would have been going campaigning simultaneously in spite of the fact that the matter is in court. So if the Supreme Court now says tomorrow that Jimoh Ibrahim is the rightful candidate, would Jimoh Ibrahim now also be calling for a postponement, knowing fully well that Jimoh Ibrahim also had been campaigning all of this while? So in as far as INEC is concerned, the party PDP had a candidate all this while. So even if it's a day to the election and the court says, no, the candidate that, you know, it's on the ballot is not the rightful candidate, I don't see why there should be need for a postponement, because the Supreme Court had said that it is political parties that owns, you know, the elections. And then also, we don't have independent candidate. If he were an independent candidate, it would have been a separate case. But in as far as it's, you know, it's a party, political party that is promoting him, and by virtue of that Supreme Court decision, the political party, for all intent and purpose, had a candidate.
All right, so what's the implication now? Because I was going to ask Augustine that, but now it falls on you. Jimoh Ibrahim going to the Supreme Court, taking this case further. What is the implication in this election?
The Jimoh Ibrahim going to Supreme Court, like I told you, Amici went as far as Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court said, look, in spite of the fact that elections had been conducted, a winner had emerged. That's for you to the substitution that was done was wrongful, and so that Amici should inherit that victory because it belongs to the party.
So what you're saying is it is not yet Uhuru for Jagade if indeed he does win this particular election, and the Supreme Court rules that he's not the rightful candidate. Jimoh Ibrahim can actually
because the way it is, if the Supreme Court comes out tomorrow to say that the Court of Appeal erred and that so it should be Jagade instead. And remind you, in fact, in spite of the fact that the Electoral Act had been amended to say if you did not participate in the process, but you had 2 candidates that participated in different processes. And so if the Supreme Court comes out to say, look, that what the Court of Appeal did was wrong, I doubt that much. I need to say that. I doubt that much that the Supreme Court will overrule the Court of Appeal on this, you know, because for me, it's as if, you know, there is Justice Abang's judgment. You know, it's as if there's something encouraging, you know, such impunity. And so he does it with impunity, knowing fully well that the matter really does not end with him. Yeah. And so he knows that when he gets to appeal, it will not stand the test of time. And so that's what basically we have seen. All right, Liberals, we'll come back to this. Let's go on a break. We'll go on a break and we'll come back. And don't forget, at the top of the hour will be time for the news update. And Michael Nath will take us there. But we're still here with Liberals
on discussing Ondo elections. Stay with us on the program. And if you're just joining us, you're watching TVC Breakfast, and we are looking at Ondo State election. Just 2 days to the governorship election in Ondo State, the southwest of Nigeria. We have Libros Oshoma with us in the studio. We still have Ayo Zubakun, our correspondent in Akure, and we still hope to get something from him before we round off. But now let's bring in Fola Dele to give us a perspective on reactions on social media. Fola, good morning.
Fola,
good morning.
Morning, Libros. Wow. This one is getting even more dramatic. And as you can imagine, people are talking a lot. People have a lot to say online. But like you said earlier, it's not over until the final whistle is blown on Saturday. Anything can still happen.
Yeah.
So let's see what some people are saying about this very dramatic Ondo election. All right. Hashtag Mui Speaks says, the Ondo State election is obviously going to determine the relevance of some godfathers in Nigeria who have dominated our political space. Lulu says, why is everyone urging INEC to postpone Ondo State election? Sheon Daniel says, as we go to the polls on Saturday, other states should put Ondo State in prayers. May there be no bloodshed. We pray for a peaceful election. Adeni Itemitope says, if this Ondo State election is free and fair, I'm so convinced that Olushola Oke is the next governor, but will the election be free and fair? She asks, and then someone responded to that and said, by mere observation, people already tipped Hillary as the winner, but in reality, Trump triumphed. So you never really know, eh? All right, last one here from Sean Shags. He says, the riggers should desist and stay away from Ondo State. Let the people's vote count. Liberals, let's talk.
All right.
Yeah, let the people's vote count. Let's talk. Do you think, I think if you of course, you've been following, and you know that some people said, they threatened and they said, look, if Eita Jagede isn't given a chance to run, we might get violent. Do you think for those people, it's necessarily about him winning, or it's just about Jimoh Ibrahim not contesting at all?
For those people, I think it's about somebody being shortchanged, and so nobody wants anybody to be shortchanged. They would prefer a level playing field for everybody and let the people decide. And like I said here last time, we shouldn't allow courts to determine who governs. Let the people, because it's a sacrament, that is sacred with the people, and that's the only way people participate in government. And so for them, it's like disenfranchising them, But thank God the court had come to right the wrong.
It's all right. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, Ayodele Ozumbako is still on the ground there. Let's hope we can reach him and he can hear us loud and clear. Ayo, the issue of security is very much on the front burner. We hear that some 26,000 police or security officers have been deployed to Ondo State to ensure that this election goes on freely and fairly without hindrance or let. Talk to us about security situation there. Are you beginning to see any movements?
Ngozi, they're all over, in and out of Akure right now. The border towns all around Ondo State, and if you know the topography of Ondo State, the southern senatorial district is a peculiar place where you have the riverine areas. So they have 26,000 policemen, just policemen alone, and they are going to be assisted by other paramilitary agencies like the Nigerian Civil Defense and the military. For those, the military, they will not participate in running of the election proper, but they are going to man strategic areas before you enter in and out of the states. They've already started doing that, and if you are coming into Akure, you are going to you witness the unprecedented number of checkpoints along the road. But I have the chairman of the Inter-Party Advisory Council, that is an association of all political parties in Nigeria, the national chairman, Alhaji Muhammad Nolado. How are you, sir?
Fine, thank you.
Now, what is Inter-Party Advisory Council doing in Ondo State?
Usually when there is election, we used to come around to sensitize voters, to educate them on how to conduct themselves without violence. That's why we are here.
Now, talking in terms of what you've seen so far, are you impressed by the level of arrangement, both in terms of political parties and INEC?
Certainly, yes. I have gone around and I have seen a lot of security, and the movement is free. I don't see any challenge that is going to violate the process.
Is there any way you synergize with this other political parties and talk to them so that we can forestall? Because if we have any fear now, it's about, you know, the election day proper, and it's all about these political parties and violence.
Yes. You see, as IPAC, you know, we are the umbrella body of all registered political parties, and we have come here as a group to come and educate voters that they should shun away from violence. That is what we are here for, and definitely we are going to support INEC as usual to make sure that we educate voters on how to go about their businesses, and they should not accept anybody calling them to participate in things that will create tension, unnecessary tension. We want peaceful conduct of the election, and we are getting positive response from the public.
You are also the national chairman of the Accord Party, and talking in terms of the major political parties participating in this election, there's a level of desperation that we've seen, and the security reports we're getting from the Southern Senatorial District is saying that there might be breakdown of law and order on election day. Are you reaching out to these political parties?
Yes, you see, we have been having programs since we came in. We have been here for 2 days. We have been having TV and radio programs educating voters on the essence of having a free and fair election, on the essence of having a peaceful election. So if these messages are carried on down to the electorate, I am sure they will shun away from violences, because violence doesn't produce good governance. And after this program, we are going on road show. We are going to have a coverage road show to educate voters on why they should shun violence. We are not here to support any political party. We are here as a collective umbrella body of political parties to educate voters, to educate all Nigerians that it is good to have a peaceful polity. So it is good to shun away from violence.
Saying no to violence, that's what the Inter-Party Advisory Council. I want to thank you, Alhaji Mohammed Nolado, for being part of this show.
Thank you very much.
I'll hand you over to Lagos now, where Ngozi and Mike are waiting.
Ayo, thank you very much. I was going to really ask a question, but I know we'll have an opportunity to talk with Mohammed Nolado, because he's the IPAC, the umbrella body, is a collection of different political parties, and I wonder how the interest they have does not interfere with the interests of the parties on ground generally. But I know we'll talk about that as we get into the election just 2 days from now. Ayo, thank you very much for being there. We'll certainly keep in touch with you as we get along. All right, we're prepared to round off now, but let me ask you this last question before we go on the program. As we head just less than about 48 hours to the election, what scenario do you see, what projections, what permutation are you seeing that will play out in this election?
And maybe in addition to that, do you still have security concerns about Ondo State?
In every election, we always have security concerns. That's why we pray that there are no casualties, and we pray that... and that's why there's this need for voters' education and awareness that they should not allow themselves, you know, to be used by politicians for selfish aims and gains, and then also they should refuse, you know, to sell their conscience, because when a man gives you 2,000 or 3,000, no matter how hungry you are, you know, if you multiply that 3,000, 2,000 naira is going to give you and so many other persons, it runs into millions of naira. And when it gets there, it's definitely going to recoup him, because to him it's an investment.
It was an investment.
And so you will not have that opportunity to ask him questions on, you know, the affairs of governance. And then permutations.
Yes.
Like I said, it's difficult to call, but from what we can see, for the PDP candidates now, that's Jegede and the outgoing governor. Some people have the view that, you know, is an extension of the outgoing governor if the Jegede wins the election, like we see in Nigeria. And then also, maybe also, we might just see a Trump, you know, kind of victory for people that, you know, the books will say, oh, this person will
I wonder
win.
who would be that Trump.
No, for that, if you look at, and then also for the APC, the APC really, because of the non-performance currently of the economy at the center, you know, people would not look at in that direction. And then for Olushola, okay, people might just want to say, look, we want to
let's try something new.
Let's try something new. And so that might be the Trump.
Thank you very much for joining us on this segment of the program.
My pleasure.
We look forward to more analysis as we get along.
Thank you.
And we thank Ayo for joining us earlier on, and also Augustine Tassi from Abuja. All right, we'll go on a break now and come back with another discussion. Stay with us.